now I have 2x plus 1 squared equals 7. Now what can you do? Square root both sides. Now remember over here on this side now, you're going to say plus or minus. Square root of a square, the base comes out. Okay, subtract 1 from both sides. That's equal to a -1 plus or minus 7. So what do you got? Two equations. What are they? 2x equals -1 plus 7. 2x equals -1 minus 7. 2x is equal to what?
6.
And x is equal to?
3.
Okay, 2x is equal to -8, and x is equal to -4. So you got 3 and -4 as your answer. Pretty nifty way of doing it. You can recognize that, isn't it? Okay, look at your book on page 93. Look at number 14. The one we just did was number 16. Look at number 14.
Bye. $9.93.
Number 14 on page 93. A minus 2 squared is equal to what? What's it equal to, class?
-5.
-5. Tell me what to write. You have a question, Jonathan?
Yeah. I know.
Oh, I dropped the square root, didn't I?
Yeah.
Thank you. I saw that puzzle look. Erase everything you got right there. Let's go back. I'm sorry. I'm glad you caught that. This wasn't 7, it was what? Square root of 7. So let's go back. 2x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus square root of 7. That's a whole different game now. Subtract 1 from both sides.
Just leave early.
Now we've got 2x is equal to -1 plus or minus square root of 7. You can't combine those. All right, so we got 2x. I'm just recopying it up here so everybody can see it better. How do we get x by itself?
Bye bye.
Divide by 2. So I got 2x divided by 2. -1 plus or minus square root of 7 divided by 2. That becomes x. And remember we said that when you have a real number part and a radical or an imaginary part, to write it as the real number part plus that imaginary or radical part. So I've got this over this denominator plus or minus this over this denominator. So if you leave it like that because you're not sure which way to go from there, that's okay, just leave it. But if you break it apart, this is your real number part, plus or minus, this is your radical or imaginary part, okay? I will accept either this or this as the format for your answer. Any question? I apologize for that 7 square root of 7.
Okay, math fail.
Is everybody back where we need to be on this one now?
I got it right. Was that number
Okay. Moving.
9? Number 9? That's it.
Where do we start on this one over here? Just put that, you don't have to separate it, just leave it as plus or minus. That indicates you got 2 solutions. You just go ahead and do this and you'll be good, okay? Because that's saying -1/2 plus the square root of 7 over 2 is one answer. -1/2 minus the square root of 7 over 2 is your second answer. And I don't care that you break them apart. All right, back to this one. What's the first thing you're going to do? Do we have the square term separated out and everything else to the other side? So what's the next step? take square root, a minus 2 in parentheses squared, and what do we put over here? Plus or minus the square root of whatever that is over there. Now, root and power is the same, so the base comes out. We don't leave negatives on the square roots, do we? How do we rewrite them?
Plus minus 5.
With an I. Plus or minus I with the square root of 5. Follow me. Why do we put the I in the front? So I know that you didn't intend to keep it under that radical. Okay, we want A by itself, so what do we got to do? Add 2 to both sides. On the left, we're going to end up with an A. Bring down the real number part first, that's your 2, plus or minus I square root of 5. Any question? Okay, look at number 15. Look at number 15. I'm trying to give you enough variations as to how they may look so you know how to start the problems. X squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to a negative 16. Now, if they've given you this quadratic equation, and they're telling you to solve it by the square root method, now think about it. You're specifically told to solve it by the square root method, then that must indicate to you that this is something you can factor that's going to end up with 2 factors. Wouldn't you think that? Okay, factor for me. What are you going to get if you factor this? Now you know you got to end up with 2 identical factors because you're being told to do it by the square root method.
Negative 3. X minus negative. X minus 3.
X minus 3 and X minus 3, are they the factors? Okay, so we can write that as X minus 3 squared equals negative 16, can't we? Any question about that so far? Now apply your square root technique. Plus or minus the square root of a negative 16. The exponent, the root's the same, so that base of x minus 3 comes out. But what's happening over here? The I comes out, and then you got the square root of 16. What is that?
4.
So we end up with plus or minus 4i. Add the 3 to both sides. You're going to get x is equal to real number part first, 3, plus or minus imaginary part. Okay, now, if you did not have specific instructions, you're just told to solve it by whichever method you want to use, and you didn't recognize that that's what's going to happen there, the first thing you would have done would have been what? Add 16 to both sides?
Yep.
Okay, let's see what would happen. You would have x squared minus 6x. If I add 16 over here, I'm going to have what? What's 16 plus 9? 25. And that's going to be equal to 0. Okay, we're saying you were just told to solve it by any technique possible. You didn't recognize that you could actually end up with 2 identical factors and apply this short and easy technique. So you would start setting it equal to 0 by adding 16 to both sides. Now you've got 3 terms, so you're talking about factoring if possible. Technique you've had so far, factor and square root. What's happening when you try to factor that? Can you find 2 numbers that multiply to give you 25, but add to give you a negative 6? No. Can't be factored.